I didn't think I had the possibility of being a happy person. I didn't feel like I belonged anywhere. I had a deep spiritual experience.
Can you share with us what exactly happened?
I had seen the word suicide. I was trying to leave the life that I was living. And I demanded that God take me back. I came into the trauma world because I was doing bodywork. And then I met BesselVanDerKolk.
How did you meet?
It's a cute story. I don't like the idea of being an important person, really. I like the idea of being a human being.
Yeah.
I have a practice of being what I know. We're also really interested in psychedelics. I actually have a really nice voice.
Would you sing something for us right now?
I can't believe you're asking me to sing now.
Welcome to the Living a Life in Balance podcast. My name is Abdullah Boulad, and I'm the founder and CEO of the Balance Rehab Clinic. My guest today is Licia Sky, somatic educator, artist, and co-founder of the Trauma Research Foundation with BesselVanDerKolk. In this episode, Licia shares her deeply personal story from growing up in a home marked by generational trauma to a near-death experience at the age of 12 that forever changed how she saw the world and her purpose in it. We explore the healing power of touch in trauma recovery, the promises and pitfalls of psychedelic and ketamine therapy, and the differences between Eastern and Western perspective of mental health. At the end, Licia sings a song and invites us into a moment of embodied presence through her voice. I hope you will enjoy. Licia, what motivated you to do what you do today?
When you say what I do today, there's so many different things. I came into the trauma world because I was doing bodywork. And I'd been doing it for a very long time. And then I met BesselVanDerKolk, and my hands were tired. I'd been doing hands-on work, helping people process not just their physical tensions, but somehow helping them connect unexpectedly with their emotions, much more so than I expected when I first started doing bodywork. I was told, you're not a therapist, you're a massage therapist, don't talk to people.
Yes.
But I had a lot of freedom to improvise in a private practice. So I would move, I would breathe, I would do vocalizing with people. Very much following my intuition and trusting that that was enough. And it was enough for me to have a very full practice. And then I put my younger son through college with my hands. And my hands said, okay, that's enough. And when I met Bessel, I'd been thinking about different master's programs in integrative health and mental health. And I said, well, maybe I should go off and become a therapist or get a master's degree or a PhD. And he loved me talking about what I did. And he said, no, they'll ruin you. So he said, you have to teach what you know.
Yeah.
And I've been teaching with him for 13 years now. And, over the years, really evolving and finding language for what had always been a wordless practice for me. Finding words for what I'd always felt was intuition. And I don't really know what science has to say about intuition. But for me, it's a process of listening. And I've been helping people to learn how to listen to themselves in the workshops that we teach. It's been a journey for me. It's been like part of a spiritual practice for me. I don't think I could do this if it wasn't my personal practice first. It's how I've always connected internally with myself as a way of listening to the people and the bodies that I was working with when I did more hands-on work. But it's also how I connect with people when I'm teaching a workshop or when I'm speaking in front of an auditorium full of people, or if I'm working with someone one-on-one, or even sitting here with you. I'm doing my best to stay in my body, listen to the sensations that tell me how I am and how we are. It's been a process of more openly becoming who I've always kind of quietly been.
I can feel a presence, certainly.
Yeah.
What you're talking about. Have you always been that way, or has this been developed through your practice, through your experience growing up?
I think I've always been attracted to mystical things, but I'm not a religious person. I think that difficult experiences where you don't have other people to lean on, if you're lucky, you find a way to find something inside yourself that you can connect with. And I think I've always had that. I've always had a sense of wonder. And wonder feels atmospheric. It doesn't feel like something in a movie or something you'd see it on television and be wondrous. But wondrous for me is like another dimension of reality. Yeah. And I should say I started, my earliest years were actually in England, in this area.
Okay.
In Banbury. And so I had a lot of connection with nature and the outdoors and this misty kind of climate. And I had a freedom of solitude, I would say, that maybe kids nowadays in a modern world don't have as much of that. I wasn't looked over constantly. So I had a lot of solitude.
As a child?
As a child, yeah.
How did you grow up?
My dad was in the military, and he was a Black man from the south side of Chicago who grew up under very tough circumstances. And his parents came from the deep South in America. His father's family came from Mississippi, and they were sharecroppers, and I'm quite sure they were slaves before they were sharecroppers. And I haven't delved very much into, the genealogy of that. I didn't have access to knowing like family records. I have some, so I know some names and when they were born, but I haven't pursued it more than that. And my mother was a Japanese war bride.
Okay.
And so I was born on an Air Force base in California. And then my father was shipped over here. So I identified as a British person. This was my place. I loved the gardens. I loved the tiny village that we lived in, the hillsides covered with sheep. I had a British accent when I came to the United States as a 6-year-old.
Okay. How long have you been in the UK?
I'd been there from 1 to 6.
1 to 6.
Yeah. Which is a very formative time.
Yes. And then you moved back to the US?
We moved to an Air Force base in the US. I think the military was much more segregated than I understood when I was young. The part of the base that we lived in was all people of color, and I just thought that was what the world was like. There were a lot of wives from Korea and Japan, and there were Black soldiers and Native American soldiers and some white soldiers, and we were just a neighborhood that was very mixed, and I thought that's what the world was like.
Yes.
And then in order to get a promotion, my father was told that he could only be promoted if he went to Vietnam. And he'd been in World War II and he'd been in the Korean War. And he said, no, that's enough. And so he retired. And then we were moved into a very tumultuous time because it was the late 60s. And he was going to university. He started his schooling here at Oxford, actually, taking classes part-time. And then he went to university, and it was a Black inner city neighborhood where the student housing was, and a Black inner city school that was very divided. And there was a lot of fighting, and it was such a strange place to be because suddenly, where I'd just been one of those normal mixed kids on an Air Force base, I was thrown into a very black and white world where suddenly people were saying, what are you? What are you? What are you? And wanting to fight because I wasn't one thing or the other.
Yes.
My parents decided to move to a very good school system that happened to be a very, very white school system. And we desegregated the school system, my sister and I. We were like the first non-white kids to go to this school. And so I had another experience of not really fitting in, of being so strange that people would want to touch my hair or ask me where I was from pretty much every day.
Yeah, you felt like a stranger in that environment.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah. And the United States, when I was born, interracial marriages were illegal in many states. So there were still miscegenation laws on the books until 1967. At the time, that was just the way the world was. But I look back on it now, and I just have this immense historical context for all of that as being part of what formed me. My mother came from a lot of trauma because she lived in Tokyo as a young child, and her family was from Tokyo, and she survived the firebombing of Tokyo and was separated from her family. She was sent up into the mountains with a grandparent and didn't see her immediate family for about 10 years.
Wow, that long.
Yeah. Both of my parents were really, really intelligent, creative people, but also because of the traumas they had, were very reactive. I grew up not knowing what PTSD was. It wasn't even a diagnosis when I was growing up.
Yes.
But I certainly lived with it. I could say that I'm a product of intergenerational trauma on both sides of my family. If you're a child of parents who've had a lot of trauma and they don't understand what it does to them, then they don't understand how to change the most volatile parts of themselves. And I can have a lot of compassion about it now, but I was a very angry kid. I had a lot of, you could say it was a huge crisis,
Yes.
There got to be a point, because we were the only non-white kids, and I think my sister had a little bit better time of it, but I still had a British accent. I wasn't white. And I just come from a couple of really violent years in an inner city school system. And so I was a real fighting kind of kid, very reactive myself, much like my parents were. And I didn't think I had the possibility of being a happy person. I didn't feel like I belonged anywhere. Because of that crisis, I had a deep spiritual experience that changed my perspective a lot. made me understand that it was okay to be different, made me understand that that I had something very meaningful to bring to the world. And that experience sort of became my talisman or my milestone, my thing to measure where I was in the world against this vision that I had of who I was going to be. And even falling into bodywork was part of me listening and thinking, well, is this how I'm going to be who I'm supposed to be? Is this how I'm supposed to help people? Is this how I'm supposed to help bring light into the world? And so I was very purpose-driven as a kid.
How old were you there?
I had the experience when I was 12. And I found out pretty quickly that I should never talk about it with anybody because it was such a strange thing and I didn't want to be locked up or anything like that.
Yes.
I think I just gave myself permission to know it on the inside, secretly for a long time. And there were a lot of things that I valued about myself that I kept secret for a very long time. Like I love to sing. And I actually have a really nice voice. But I never sang in front of anybody except my dog when I was walking in the woods for a very, very long time. And so I know a lot's made of magical thinking in children as being inconsequential or that it isn't real. But there is a way that my sense of magic and wonder about me was the most important thing in my life. And it wasn't something that I let go of when I became 6 or 7 or whatever. It was just my secret part of my identity. And I would say it's not such a secret anymore.
Yeah. Can you share with us what exactly happened? What this spiritual experience was exactly?
I had seen the word suicide. I'd seen references to it in movies. And I knew that it was something that could be done. And I knew that there were different ways to do it. And I was a curious child. And I was also somebody who was good at doing things. And so I was trying to leave. I was trying to leave the life that I was living because I knew it was wrong. And I didn't want to be messy about it. So one winter night, after a really, really miserable experience with my parents, I closed my door and opened the windows to my room and lay on my bed in the freezing cold, and I could see my breath, and I demanded that God take me back. And I was sort of lying there freezing cold with my fists clenched, just angry. Angry that a God that was supposed to do good things in the world could put me in the situation that I was in.
Yes.
And I think I had the kind of belief in knowing that children are able to have that many adults don't have. And I suddenly wasn't in the cold anymore. I was warm, and I felt myself surrounded by light, and I felt myself rising through a tunnel of colors and seeing pictures, like moving pictures that were scenes of my life, and feeling warmer and warmer and less tense and more, somebody might have said that I'd fallen asleep and they might have not been wrong. But I rose through this tunnel and emerged into, it was almost like the center of a galaxy. There were just so many lights. It was like if you've ever seen the sun in the sky and it refracts?
Yes.
And you see all those colors around it. And I know you're not supposed to do that because it's not good for your eyes. But if you could imagine a sky that was completely filled with suns, just like billions and billions of them, that's what it was like. And it wasn't hot, it was warm, and it was brilliant. It was just dazzling. And all the lights were flashing and refracting, and I knew that I was one of them. And I was welcomed, not with words, but I knew I was welcomed, and I knew I was loved. And I thought, oh, I'm home. I'm home. This is where I want to be. And then I was told, no, you actually have to go back. That was confusing, and I was given a life preview that was even more detailed than my life review was.
Yes.
There's so much of that I don't quite remember, but I saw myself in the life that I have now, traveling the world. Really, I saw the planet Earth wrapped in lines of light like a ball of yarn. And I was told that all those lines of light were me traveling around the world. Then I sort of got poured back into my body again. And that's a lot to have happen to a little kid. Yeah. And I had no idea how much time had passed. And when I walked out the door, it was as if the rest of the world, nothing had happened at all, even though it seemed like so much time had passed. I was sort of expecting everything to be very different, and it wasn't. But what was different was me. I just became a very independent person after that. I came back filled with so much energy and so much inspiration. And I didn't know what I knew before that experience and what I had gained after that experience. I've since read that children who have this kind of experience take a lot longer to integrate than adults do. Adults tend to have a much clearer before and after.
What to do, yeah.
But kids learn everything by osmosis. So I didn't really know. I just knew that I knew things. I went off to college very early. I got accepted when I was 15, and I left when I was 16. And then didn't do that. I went on this very non-linear, circuitous path of just, it was the 70s and 80s, and people were hippies, and they were macrobiotic and doing natural things. And I just kind of ran into that world as much as I could, and met a lot of really interesting people. And there were people who were meditating, and I went seeking people who would understand the experience that I had.
Okay.
I went seeking different meditation groups, hoping that somebody would know what had happened to me. Nobody really understood what had happened to me. They really didn't. I got into political movements and feminism. I was really looking to how do you help people? How do you make the world a better place? How do people do this? The questions that I was asking, maybe I didn't form them in the right way, I don't know. But I've taken a little bit from every place that I've gone. I became a macrobiotic cook for people who were dying of cancer. I became a body worker. I practiced yoga. I had a couple of kids. I went to college for a year here and then dropped out and went to college somewhere else for a year and did something else.
Why did you change or try new things? Because of trying, it was not a fit. You quickly figured out it's not the direction you're looking for.
My dad being a Black man who came from real poverty, His accomplishment in life was that he got a master's degree. His first master's degree was in economics, and he'd studied psychology. And, my parents were very well-read, very creative people. They had so much going for them and so much trauma that got in the way of them fulfilling everything. And probably a lot of racism got in the way, too. So they expected me to go further than them. And when I was 16 and went to college for the first time, I studied what my father wanted me to study, which was economics.
Yes.
And it felt like the most dishonest thing in the world to me. Oh, I was horrified. I was shocked at what they were saying money was for, and why you should have it and who shouldn't have it, and how to manipulate who had money and who didn't. And I just thought, no, this isn't for me. I can't do this.
Okay.
And then they were sort of steering me towards being a lawyer or something. And I was a weirdo. I was a really strange kid. I wasn't going to be able to do that. And I didn't have enough experience fitting in.
Your experience you've had with 12 gave you some purpose, but you needed also to make the experience to get there.
Oh, I've had
knowing.
So much experience.
Yeah.
Every single experience that I've had everywhere has built on the next experience.
Yeah.
And every experience that I've had, I've been an improviser with. I've been a self-learner, a self-educator, a self-practicer. And I've had to trust my ability to improvise, trust my ability to integrate.
Yes.
And I guess some people would call that creative. I didn't even know that was creative. I didn't even know that was intuition. That just was what I was.
You said something interesting before. It's about the listening, and I assume you meant not just listening with what someone has to say, but also to the body, to the expression, in combination with the work you have been doing as a body worker.
Yeah.
Was body work like the experience you have built, which has shaped you the most today?
It wasn't until I was in my late 20s when I started having flashbacks. When my kids were small, I'm guessing that many people have flashbacks when they have kids who are the age that things happen to them.
Yes.
And when I started having flashbacks about the things that happened to me in childhood, I started remembering my spiritual experience much more vividly. Yes. And by coincidence, there was an article in a newspaper about a gathering in a town that was hours away from where I lived. But when I saw it, I had this very, very urgent, strong need to go to that meeting. So I drove for hours, left my kids behind with my then husband, and it was like I was being called to be there. I was so powerfully drawn because I'd wanted for so long to understand it. And then when I got there and there were all these people who'd had the experience, then I was like, oh no, maybe I don't belong here, because these are people who died in car accidents or they had heart attacks, and they were going around in a circle saying what happened to them. And then it was my turn to say, and I just burst into tears thinking, do I really belong here? And this little old man with white hair and brown skin and bright blue eyes and very wrinkled, but just beaming, smiling, walked up to me and he said, I just want you to know this really happened to you. And it was validation that I needed to just own it and not question it anymore. And for a little bit, I joined a support group for people who'd had experiences like mine. And they were saying, well, what are you going to do? What are you doing to be who you saw in that vision? And I said, well, I'm good with my hands. I grew up doing massage on my mother's shoulders when I was little, because that was part of Japanese culture. We did things like walked on each other's feet and massaged tents. So I knew that. But I thought, there's something in my hands that might be a good thing. And so I let myself follow that, even though I didn't have any training in it, like professional training. And as soon as I decided I wanted to do that, then suddenly there were all these massage therapists who wanted to send their most difficult clients to me. And that's the thing, getting people who are challenging to work with and having the patience and curiosity and openness to make it safe for them to have a good experience. And I was really good at that.
Challenging, you mean?
Challenging, demanding, difficult temperaments, difficult personalities. You know, again, I didn't have any experience with the professional mental health world at all. But these were oftentimes very needy, self-centered people. Sometimes they were very affluent and powerful. And sometimes they were very accomplished professional people who, and I learned something from working with every single one of them. And one of my favorite clients was a very well-known hand surgeon. And every time I would work on him, he would say, what's that muscle you're working on there? Is that the levator scapula? And he'd kind of test me, and I'd go home and I'd study a little bit more so I could talk with him more. And it amazed me that people would open up and trust me so much. There was something about me that, as a presence, was open and didn't have any judgments about what I was seeing or who I was meeting, that made it really safe. I understand that now. What I didn't understand back then was how much respect some of these people that I respected had for me. I thought, well, you know, I haven't even finished college. What am I to them? I'm just a pair of hands.
Yes.
But that wasn't actually the case. And there was somebody who I had assumed was not a high-level professional person, and we just had this very friendly rapport with. And then it turned out that she was this very powerful head of a children's unit of a hospital. And as soon as I found that out, I had about 5 minutes where I lost my voice and was afraid to talk to her. And I thought, that's not fair to her. That's so not fair to her, because there's so much friendship here and so much safety here for her. And if I took that away from her, that was going to be hurting her. So I had to decide not to be intimidated by her position.
Okay.
That was a big lesson.
When you look back to that time, you know, you mentioned they had a lot of respect to you. Why do you think? Because there is a discrepancy, obviously, between how you saw yourself and how others.
I think there's still a discrepancy between how I see myself and how others see me. And I think that's okay. I don't like the idea of being an important person, really. I like the idea of being a human being. And I think that's the most important thing I am, as a human being. And I think that's the most important thing anybody is. So I think that was the thing that people really loved and opened up to, was that I was a human being.
And your humbleness, I believe. Your humbleness, your presence, your calmness, and maybe also not being any non-judgmental to those people in today's world.
Yeah, I had no preconception of what anybody was supposed to be. I did listen to my hands. I mean, when people would say, how do you know how much pressure to use? How did you know to put one hand on this shoulder and the other hand on the hip? And I didn't have that kind of mechanical, biological training. It was all just following and listening. Eventually, I did go and do enough hours to get a license when licensing was a big thing. It was really about what felt good, what felt right. I had a sense of feeling. What does connection feel like? And I had a way of reaching in until I felt the body push back. And that point of resistance became one of the things that I always listened for, not to go beyond that and not to miss that point. And I think therapeutically that's the place, that's the edge, that's the place where the discomfort is, that you don't have to push any more than. That's the place to listen for, and where I could feel that connection back to my core when I reached that place in the person that I was working with. So I don't really ever try and push anybody past that point, whether it's emotional or physical.
Knowing the limits.
Yeah. Well, feeling that connection, core to core, spirit to spirit, energy to energy, where the person who's being worked on can feel something that they weren't able to feel before.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. We see this very often in our also daily practice.
Yeah.
Something I'm wondering is also, how did you meet your current husband, Bessel? How did you fell in love?
It's a cute story. It's pretty wild. Because there'd always been this thing in the back of the mind that, I had this big spiritual vision. I'm supposed to meet somebody. I'm supposed to meet somebody. And then I think to myself, well, maybe that's because I read too many fairy tales. Maybe that's really not supposed to happen. Maybe that's not part of the vision. Maybe I'm supposed to be alone. And I didn't meet Bessel until I was 52.
Okay.
And maybe you've heard this story. I don't know. But we met in a laundromat.
Licia.
Yeah. He was just a big person with a big presence who kind of connected with me and said, let's go to the coffee shop a couple doors down from the laundromat. And we had a cup of coffee, and he started talking and I started talking, and he was asking me what I was doing. And somehow it just, everything made a lot of sense.
Yeah.
We were talking about synchrony and how people nod with each other and understand each other. And, he'd been teaching in some of the places that I had attended as a seeking person, and I'd never met him. I'd never heard of his name. And I'm really grateful for that, because I probably would have been very intimidated by him. He was just a regular person that I was having a cup of coffee with. And he liked my stories about bodywork, and we just had a lot to talk about. And it was pretty early on in knowing each other that he said, no, don't go to school. They'll ruin you. So, and that was actually a hard thing to swallow, because I'd spent so much time looking for the right thing to learn, to just go, oh, I already know it. I'm supposed to teach this. I don't even know what it is I'm teaching. I have a practice of being what I know and inviting people to explore being. That's, who knows, maybe, and I don't think it should be codified.
Yeah.
It's just like there are people who write cookbooks,
Mm-hmm.
and then there are people who cook.
Correct. Yeah.
And you can read a lot of cookbooks, and they're wonderful to read.
You're still not a cook.
But the thing is that when you go to the market, you're going to look for what's the fresh thing that's exciting. What are the things that I can play with? How can this aubergine go with this tomato? How can and then you have a sense of time and temperature and flavor and smell, and it's not going to be the same no matter what you do.
Yeah, but that's also your creativity and your presence with the ingredients.
It's a matter of trust. It's a matter of trust, and it's a matter of also, I'm never quite sure exactly what's going to come from it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people come into the kitchen and they'll say, "Can I help you?" And I'll say, I'll try and say yes, but I don't know. And
no, I fully understand. I mean, if I think about my wife and myself, I cannot cook based on a cookbook.
Yeah.
So I check what we have or what looks good and tries to create something out of it.
Right.
Where my wife, she tends more to be like, this is the plan. Let's do this, then this, then this, then this. But I cannot do that.
Some of my worst cooking disasters have been from trying to follow a recipe. And I'm sure, I have friends who cook beautifully from recipes. That's not my talent.
And in future, maybe robots will do this for us.
I hope not. I hope not. You know, I don't think a robot can smell. I don't think a robot can hold something in its hand and feel if it's ripe or not. Maybe they can do that. I don't know. But, you know, does a robot have a heart that gets excited when they smell an orange and put it with cinnamon and ginger? I don't know. But
do new combinations of flavors.
Right. And play. And I, you know, it's interesting because I have looked at AI and said, you know, what do you do with this, this, and this? And what it does is it aggregates a lot of recipes. But it's not the same thing as knowing with excitement and joy for yourself. And there's a level of vulnerability and trust in just being willing to listen to what you feel and move with that. So it's not creative like I've got a plan that I've got. It's more like I'm following, listening.
What feels good.
Right.
And listen to yourself.
Yeah.
What about the work you do with Bessel and the foundation? How are you involved there, and what's the latest research and work you're doing?
I'm not a researcher, but I have many things that I wish researchers were looking at. The whole sensory world, how we experience ourselves and experience the world around us, our senses. And I think we have many, many senses, not just touch and sight and smell and hearing. The work that is coming out of Ruth Lanius's lab is really, really exciting work because they're talking about sensory processing and proprioceptive awareness, which is spatial awareness, and sense of balance, vestibular awareness. And I think the awareness of our maps of felt sense that are imbued with meaning are a next step in understanding how we move with reality. You know, there's all this stuff happening around the default mode network and their sense of identity, your habitual sense of identity. And I think those are important things because people who've been hurt can develop habits of identity that can be very limiting and circumscribing and contribute to habits of reactivity when there isn't something that's dangerous to be reacting to. But felt sense goes beyond all of those things. It's a way of being in the world. And it's such an abstract thing that I don't know if I would know how to talk about it with a researcher, maybe more a philosopher or a monk or some kind of spiritual visionary might have more of it. Maybe it's kind of a Zen thing, but this idea of beingness, of awareness and consciousness as a way of moving and interacting with the world, interacting and creating a life, being fully alive. I think that's the thing that Bessel and I are experientially dancing around.
Okay.
And that's what I try and bring in experientially for people who come to our workshops, our little groups, which we probably don't have enough energy to do more than we do. And I wish there were more
We do already quite a lot.
There are different ways to be, and we have habits that can point us in the directions of the chairs that we're sitting in so that we're not looking around and seeing what's around us and not feeling how our bodies can move differently. I'm trying to get us out of a recipe way of existing into more of a being way of being. And it's interesting because we're also really interested in psychedelics. And in the United States, ketamine is a legal medicine.
Yes.
And, the other medicines that are being researched, even ones that, when I first heard that psychedelics were being researched, I thought, oh, acid, LSD, that's a dangerous one. They shouldn't do that. I was so naive. I didn't know. I just bought into all the propaganda of the 70s.
Most people would think so, yes.
And especially as a person of color, that was like a no trespassing sign that I was never going to walk past. But the embodied awareness work that I do now has been a very powerful part of doing integration work for people who've had psychedelic experiences. And I don't think there's enough research yet around what it means to do integration. I would like to see a lot of that. As part of my training, I did have to take ketamine as a psychedelic. And when we were first learning, they were saying, oh, the drug will do it all. The drug takes away your depression. You don't have to have therapy if you're taking this drug. And we found out that people were being hooked up in clinics. I'm sure there are nice clinics with nice furniture and, but people were being left alone. And in the first training that I went to as a student, I did the MAPS training first, the MAPS training for people of color who were training to be MDMA therapists. But I'm not a therapist. So I didn't want to pursue that as a therapist because I didn't want to get a degree.
Yes.
But in the ketamine training that we did, I'm a sensitive person, so I don't need very much. I just needed a tiny bit to have a huge experience. And I thought, oh, this was pretty nice.
So you tried yourself psychedelics and
I
ketamine.
tried a ketamine dose as part of a training that I was in to learn about it. And there were 36 people who were body workers or doctors or therapists who were all in the room together. And so we paired off in 18 pairs and took turns sitting for each other, first with low dose and then with higher dose. In that particular training, the one where I had this huge experience with a tiny dose, there were people who had been running IV clinics who needed very, very high doses and weren't feeling anything and were feeling very frustrated. And Bessel had been invited to lecture about trauma for that workshop. And they made space for me to do a bit of embodied awareness for that same workshop. And the next morning, one of the people who'd taken a really high dose and had not had very much experience came up to me in tears and said, I don't need a higher dose. I need what you're doing. And I went and talked to the lead facilitator, and I told him what she'd said to me, and he agreed, and he invited me to come and teach in all the workshops, which was, he didn't have to do that.
Yes.
I think that was a stretch, probably would have been a stretch, but he's a very, very open-minded person and a dear friend now. And he just said, come on, you're a colleague. And so I've been teaching in these workshops, teaching embodied awareness and learning from people who do things differently. It's not about blasting somebody off into the stratosphere. It's about opening a person to themselves. I think everything that happens in a psychedelic experience is something that you somehow carry in you. And maybe you carry inside you cosmic things that you're not able to be aware of until you open those doors. But you also carry painful things inside you maybe that have been too painful to look at otherwise.
Possibly.
I've been finding from some other teachers that really, really tiny doses where you might not hallucinate anything, you might not see colors, but you might feel vividly the feelings that you didn't know you had. I've had people on a very, very low dose thinking they wanted to work on one thing, suddenly go in and go, oh my gosh, I love my mother so much. I didn't know how much I loved my mother. And suddenly they're weeping about all the painful, complex things that happen with their mother. But it's at a dose where they have the ability to speak clearly and remember their experience.
Right.
And come back and process it in a different way with some level of compassion and understanding for themselves and whoever they've been able to meet. And then I've also met people who, have heard about my work and said, I think I need your help because I had a really, really bad trip 20 years ago and I've never gotten over it. I've had this hole inside me since then. I've felt like a ghost. I've been terrified. I've felt like I've been living in a fog all this time. And it doesn't take very much to help a person like that integrate and meet the thing that they were terrified of in that experience and come to a new sense of relationship with themselves.
What I hear is it's promising, but it's still in the early stage to understand what the dosage, what's the correct dosage is for what type of people, and certainly what I hear from you is that it needs to be integrated as well.
Oh yeah,
integrated in a more holistic approach, body integration, psychotherapeutic integration. And this is actually in line with what we experience. We get, particularly from the US clients coming into Europe, they tell us, I've tried 10 ketamine infusion sessions and it didn't help. Yeah, why did it didn't help? Yeah, because it was just provided isolated
right.
and not integrated as what you're explaining right now.
I can't say enough about how I don't trust standardized, especially not for not for psychedelics. But I don't really, I don't think you can standardize mental health. Maybe you can standardize a recipe, but even with a recipe, a ripe tomato is very different from a tomato that's not ripe.
Absolutely. That's why we have to look at it individually, because it's like cooking locally with local products. It's different. It's not one size fits all.
Right. The idea of leaving somebody alone in a room with an experience that can be that big just didn't feel responsible for me. I could never do that. But we were teaching one place, and I was talking about how I really feel strongly that preparation of intention, of holding space, of practicing having proximity, eye contact, no eye contact, voice, no voice, hand holding, pressure, no pressure, all of those variables, they all mean something. And they mean something in the context of your relational history with other people and with yourself. I wouldn't expect that a standardized dose was automatically going to take care of a depression. And as I was saying these things during the break, this woman came up to me and she said, my husband has been in a terrible depression for 10 years. And our daughter died in a car accident, and he went and he had therapy, and he had antidepressants, and he had electroshock therapy. And finally he went and had 10 sessions of ketamine, and they gave him the first session and it didn't seem to do much. So they gave him more, and they kept giving him more and more and more. And 3 days after the last session, he killed himself.
Wow.
And it's such a devastating story. I can't say that he wouldn't have committed suicide anyway. Maybe he tried everything he could try. But to say that this is going to be a new gold standard, this is going to fix you like any other drug is going to fix you, I think people aren't machines.
That's why it's so important to do proper research and understand what helps, what doesn't help, or what's the right amount and mix.
But that ability to be present, to listen and respond and know what you are feeling inside and what you are holding and perceiving in another person, because quite often, especially in the high states that people get sent into, they're wordless states. And so you have to sense into, as much as you can, the person that you're holding space for. They're going into the ultimate of vulnerability. To be able to know what's right as best you can.
Mental health is becoming more and more a big topic in the world, but there are also cultural differences. You come from different cultures, how you grew up, and also the Japanese Eastern culture. How do you see the differences between the Western world and, let's say, the Eastern culture you have got to know?
I think the modern Western educated world does not have so much permission to be spiritual anymore, does not have permission to be vulnerable and wondrous and not know. We live in a world where experts are supposed to tell you what to do, and you're not supposed to know what to do or try and do anything without the permission of an expert or until you yourself become an expert. And it's ironic that I'm paired with Bessel and work so closely with Bessel, because he is like the world's expert on trauma. And I'm the antithesis of an expert. Although people are starting to put that label on me, I really don't like it at all.
Right.
I would rather have that sense of not knowing. and that sense of exploration. I think that's maybe what Bessel was really attracted to me, is that sense of not knowing. I think he really does hold a lot of that, not knowing, that let's see what happens. Let's explore this. Let's find out more. And for me, that's where the wondrousness is. For me, that's where the fullness and aliveness of being is.
Like empowering the individuals and not make them dependent on someone or a concept.
There's a collaborative aspect to this too. It's not like I just only want to rely on me alone. There's a really beautiful part of agency that has to do with being able to do something that makes things better, do something that makes things beautiful, do things that help other people to feel good, or, I love to garden, I love to cook, I love to make things. And there's a way that when you do those things, you have this possibility of connection, you have this possibility of play, you have this possibility of collaboration. Bessel told a story recently in a lecture where he said, as a medical student, he saw a lot of really, really traumatic things that if he'd felt helpless about, he would have been traumatized by. He saw a young child with burns over 3/4 of their body. And if he'd just seen the child and not known what to do and not had the training to do it, he just would have been horrified.
Yes.
But he, as this medical resident, had the training, had the know-how, and was able to do something that was actually the right thing and the effective thing to do.
Yes.
So that kind of agency also comes into play. And I think that's part of having meaning in your life, being able to do that. And I think that's a spiritual thing. That's an aspect of purpose.
I'm wondering, what do you do in your daily life to stay in balance?
Oh, gosh. Well, I would be lying if I said I were always in balance, right?
No one is.
No
we
one
try
is
to balance out.
Always in balance, but what I have more and more and more and more and more and more is this capacity to come back into balance, to come back into repair. I can have days where I feel absolutely terrible, and I get a cold, or we have an argument about something, or I make a dish that doesn't taste so great, but I practice what I teach. What I teach are the practices that I live with. When I'm up on a stage teaching, I'm teaching what I practice. And I practice it because those are the things that I have to be aware of, that I have to listen to, that keep me connected with my center, keep me connected with my sense of balance, keep me connected with my capacity to slow down. I have a very busy life. We travel an awful lot. And despite my best efforts, it seems to be getting busier. So sometimes the most delicious thing is when I get to step onto a stage and sit in a chair and practice and meditate. It used to be that I would sit up on a stage and see all those people and my heart would be pounding and my hands would be sweating, and I would start to practice and everything would slow down. Everything would slow down. Now, my heart doesn't pound so much, but sometimes, because I'm not an expert and because I'm doing things that to me don't look like much, you're feeling your bum in your chair.
It's meaningful for others.
It's meaningful for others, but what are we doing, really? We're not doing very much. You're paying attention to your breath. You're paying attention to the sensations in your feet. And I think to myself, well, doesn't everybody already know this? And maybe they do, but it's really nice to just have the space and time to do it in. Yeah.
You have a good voice, you mentioned before.
Yeah.
When was the last time you have sing a song for anyone?
I did a workshop in Paris last week, and I was doing vocalizing and vocal practices. And I always appreciate when people are brave enough to say that they don't like something. I never expect everybody to love what I'm inviting them to try.
Yes.
Because when I work one-on-one with the most traumatized people, they usually hate it. And this man came up and said, I felt so ashamed that everybody else was having so much fun and enjoying themselves, and I hated it. And it was like, wow, can we do a piece of work?
Yeah.
And I invited him up onto the stage, and we did a piece of work around that. And he was really teary, and I didn't have a lot of time to work, but I could feel all his grief coming up around this, and all his shame coming up around not being able to enjoy something that other people were enjoying. And I realized that, we have moments where we encounter great joy, like a wedding, or people singing really joyously and beautifully together. And quite often I'm brought to tears. And I was thinking, well, what are those tears? And I realized right alongside my joy is often the grief of what I didn't have. And I was recalling the spiritual traditions of the blues and how people sing when they're feeling pain. How sometimes singing when you're feeling pain makes you feel better, right? So I sang a little bit of that. I sang The Motherless Child. I only sang a verse.
Would you sing something for us right now?
I can't believe you're asking me to sing now. Yeah. Well, I need to sit differently. Okay. It's a very simple song. I learned it from the Sufis when I was seeking in different meditation groups, and I changed the words because some of the words were like an Islamic prayer. And it's not that I don't respect that. I respect it really deeply, but I wanted it to be accessible to anybody from any tradition. So you'll have to learn to sing it with me.
I will try.
So it goes, all I ask of you is forever to remember me as loving you. All I ask of you is forever to remember me as loving you. I hold you inside my heart. I hold you inside my heart. All I ask of you is forever to remember me as loving you. And you can go around and dance with that song. Oh.
Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
It was such a pleasure to have you here today and share with us your life and your life story. And I enjoyed very much your presence. And I'm pretty sure you will be a presence for so many other people out in the world going forward.
It was a joy to meet you. And you pushed me to go where I didn't think I was going to go.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Thank you.